Thank you. Someday my name will come out right. But actually, I really don't care. So it is my honor to introduce Chief Eric Echevarria. Did I get it right? To you all. Okay, it works. Sorry. Our Peoria Police Chief holds a Bachelor of Arts from Northeastern Illinois University and an Associate of Arts from Benedictine University. He is also involved with the International Association of Chiefs of Police, the Illinois Association of Chiefs of Police, the Hispanic American Police Command Officers Association, the Puerto Rican Police Association, among others. He also served as a corporal for the United States Marine Corps, a former commander for the Elgin, Illinois Police Department, Echevarria. Say it for me.
Echevarria.
Okay, close. Has extensive experience as a resident officer, in addition to extensive work with major investigations, juvenile investigations, gang unit, drug unit, technical investigations, and more, having served with that department since 2001. Now, this is the 8-month anniversary of our chief's arrival here in Peoria. So let's hope and celebrate that. If you follow the news, the chief has really been making a lot of changes here in our community, and I did thank him for reminding our community what the curfew is for new teenage drivers, because I have one. So it was great for me to be able to show that to him. But I think you guys will enjoy what he has to share. So please help me in welcoming the chief.
Thank you. I don't have as many jokes as Scott has, but I was going to tell him, keep her name out of your mouth. All right? I understand, everybody. Keep it in. That was my one joke. All right, you got that one? All right. So that wasn't inappropriate. Was it too soon? Too soon? Too soon? So no, thank you everybody for the invite. First of all, thank you. And there's a little bit of pressure. I talked to a couple people. Hey, I came to you to speak. I said, I hope I got something good to say. I started at the I don't know where the 2001 came from, but I started in 1999 at the Elgin Police Department. I did 22 years there. Phenomenal learning grounds to the Elgin Police Department. If you know any history about it, anybody been to Elgin? Okay, so I think Elgin has put out more chiefs than any other department that I know. The Fort Collins Police Chief is from Elgin, Schaumburg, Rockford, Sanford, Florida, all kinds of, all over the place. We're all over the place. So it's a great place to be. Elgin is in my heart, but now Peoria is taking over. So I really enjoy being here. I live here with my wife and my 10-year-old. I have a 27-year-old, a 25-year-old, and a 22-year-old, and 2 grandkids who don't live in this area. So I stay pretty busy with the job, obviously. You heard that I have a bachelor's. I have in 7 weeks, I'll have my master's. So I'll be done with my master's. So quite a bit of work being here, being a father and a husband, and trying to finish up my master's. So I was doing my capstone when I got hired here. So it was a bit challenging, but we did it. So I'm going to go on and talk about what we've been doing, or what's happened since I've been here, and kind of where I started and where we're trying to move to, if that makes sense. So if I get long-winded, Scott, you can go ahead and cut me. Don't slap me, but you can cut me. All right. So
You got a gun.
yeah, that's all. I don't even know why I carry this thing, to be honest with you. And I don't know if I'm really the police anymore as a chief. I don't even have handcuffs. So if somebody did get in a fight, I'd have to call for help. So, so when I arrived here and I got hired as a chief, there was a reason they wanted to go to the outside and really get a whole new perspective of what policing should look like and what direction we need to move in. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yep. I'm gonna try to move out this way so I can see a little bit better. Can I move this?
We have a mobile.
I'll take the mobile mic. I gotta be great. Keep talking. So this is what I walked into in 2021. 143 people were shot, 33 were killed, 27 of them were by gunshot wounds. That's on. So we had over 1,424 shot spotted alerts. So, you know, the city has this technology that, I wonder if I can play it for you. I usually like playing it for people so you can hear what it is that we hear. So if it comes up on my phone, I will play it. So here, for example, most people haven't heard this. And the community should know what we're doing. It's kind of, did you hear that? I don't know. No? Okay. Just speak loud. Let's try this. Yeah. So barely, but some of them are a little, no one. Those are 2 rounds that were shot in the city. There are some that are a lot more than that. See if I can find one that. Most people in here probably have not heard what we had. So every officer has this on their phone. So I get an alert that there was a type of shooting on the phone. My son now knows what they are because this phone never shuts off. You can imagine. My wife sometimes sleeps in another room because this is going off all night, whether it's that, whether it's a text, whether it's an email, whether something else is happening. But those shot spotter alerts, we had 1,424 of those that netted 5,806 rounds, right? So that's the amount of bullets that were flying through the air, okay? So as you see, our statistics, our numbers have been going up since 2017. They have gone up. You can go on to the next slide. So that's what I walked into when I walked into the city, and I said, well, what am I going to do as the chief, and what are the initiatives that we need to have? So initially when I came in, the first few months, all the way through December, really was for me to be out in the community. Let me hear from the community, from our community members, what are the issues? Where are we missing the mark? Or where are we not missing the mark? What are we doing good? What are we not doing good? What needs to change? And out of these conversations, and I'll say this, I'll back up. I didn't meet with my command staff at the time. So my command staff, I have an assistant chief and I have 3 captains. That is the group that runs the police department, if you will, right? I didn't meet with them for about a month and a half. I'd say hi to them, but I did not sit down and have an official command staff meeting because I needed them to know that for what's important to me as the chief moving forward, that they needed to know is what is happening outside of our building. What does the community want from us and what do they need? It's not what I need to hear from you, I need to hear from them. And I wanted to set that stage that moving forward, we need to be listening to the community. So based on my conversations with the community, I knew I had to develop some goals and some priorities for the department. So there's 4 overarching goals that I always want the community to know that we as a police department need to be working on. And at any point, I should be able to ask a captain. I should be able to ask my assistant chief. He should definitely know it. The captain should definitely know it. But I should be able to walk to any lieutenant or any sergeant and say, what are you doing to reduce serious crimes? What are you doing to foster community partnerships? What are we doing to improve traffic safety? And what are we doing to promote employee development? I think all those, just 4 very simple overarching goals for the department that I think work with each other. We can't reduce serious crime without fostering community partnerships. And as we move forward, I'll show you why I say that. And we can't improve traffic safety either. We need to partner with the community. We need to be talking to the community. And then our employee development. If we're not promoting employee development and getting our officers up to speed on what they need to know and how to do it, how can I expect them to do their job? So I need to make sure that those tools are in place. So when I talk about reducing serious crimes, some of the priorities in there are exploring our technology enhancements and our gun violence initiative, which is the big thing I think everybody has heard us talking about at the police department. And we're being very transparent as we do this. We have had, we've done 9 directed patrols, I believe, up to this point, where we're specifically, I hate to use the word targeting, but we're going out on those dates as a big group of 60, 70 officers and hitting the hotspot areas where we know our data shows it. Now, we're not just, this isn't, if you hear stop and frisk, that is not what is happening. Our data shows exactly where we need to be. Our shot spotters tell us where we need to be. When we pull out on a scene and there's 10 casings and 2 different types of casings out on the scene, we know these are the areas we need to be in. We have the data and the science shows that. So that's where we're going. So when we talk about our gun violence initiative, our first goal was evidence-based enforcement and prevention strategies. So focused deterrence, hotspot policing, data-driven approaches to crime and traffic safety, DDACs. Those are where our crime and our traffic intersect. Where do we see traffic incidents occurring and crime simultaneously? Where do those intersect? So those are areas we want to be in. And we have a crime analyst and a management analyst that will give me that data, pulls it up on a map, and can show me exactly where we've been. So we want to be in those areas. Those are the areas we specifically, if we want to use the word target, is where we want to be, right? So that's where we have, as the chief has said, we need to focus our attention in these areas. Not neglecting the other areas, but these areas need some special attention, including when we move down where we put our technology. So goal number 2 is kind of, this is more internally. So as I came in, I had to reevaluate, what are we doing internally as a police department? How are we communicating? I think just like maybe any other job, there's a failure to communicate internally, right? Where there's from the top to the bottom, from the bottom to the top. And so we need to figure out, how are we communicating and how are we sharing information internally? And how are we sharing that information to our external partners as well? So basically, is this to increase the number of field investigations on each shift and make an effort to communicate. So I have our special divisions, our criminal investigative division, our special investigative division, which is kind of the gang unit, if you will, if there was what people think of as a gang unit, our drug investigators, and then our major crime investigators, is come down the roll call and share information. Let's all know what's going on. There's people want to hold on to information sometimes, right? Because information is power. This is ours. No more of that. So again, coming in from the beginning, an outside person, there's no loyalty to anybody. I don't know anyone. You guys need to do this. We need to be talking to each other. So we made sure that's happening and it's being documented and information is being shared. Technology initiatives. If you've seen it, I tried to keep the information, but the Journal Star, I know you're recording, so the Journal Star decided to FOIA and put out where our LPRs are. Again, I wasn't too concerned because criminals ain't that smart anyway. So I said, if I can go a week without something happening to our license plate recognition cameras, we'll be okay. It's been fine. But I got to calm down our officers and the rest of the people say, just relax. The criminals are not that smart, and they haven't been. So we had placed 16 LPR cameras within the city in the hotspot areas. You could read the Journal Star article and tell you exactly where they're at if you want to know. Journal Star's getting a lot of publication, a lot of press from me today. Not very positive, Journal Star, but so anyway, if you're loyal to Journal Star, I apologize. It's the media. I got to throw a jab at them for putting my information out. We don't want to give our secrets out, right? We're you know, the military isn't giving their secrets out. Right? They're combating something different. We're combating some element here, and I don't feel that we always need to give our secrets out. So there's things that I'm not going to share if I don't have to. But I will share that we had LPRs. We went out into the neighborhoods and the communities where the LPRs are at, and we spoke to those community groups because it affects them. It's important that they understand what these are and what they're not. So there's, they're not stoplight cameras. They're not any of that. It just takes a picture of a license plate and an overall picture of the car. That's it. And it's an investigative tool that we use. And it's been great. The first person that we were able to find based on the LPR was a lady who had dementia, and she was lost in her vehicle, driving around all day. And so we were able to get her the help she needed. So they help, and they're a great investigative tool. And so that is some of the technology that we're using. Obviously, our ShotSpotter system, NIBIN, the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. So we have a NIBIN machine. It's basically a camera. So if you've never heard, when we find a shell casing on the street, we take that shell casing and we put it in this camera that takes a whole bunch of images of it. I'm just trying to talk about this very basically, right? Takes images in all kinds of directions and different lighting. Each shell casing has a fingerprint, if you will, of the gun. So we are able to then collaborate which one was related to what shooting. So we may not have the gun, but we may know that this shell casing was related to shooting A, B, and C. So then when we do get the gun from somebody, we can match them up to that shooting, if you will. So we have that. We're very fortunate to have that in our building, and we have that, and it's a phenomenal tool. So making sure that we're using that and that we're really trying to figure out and match up where casings and evidence come from. Next. Petition to revoke probation. So we have a lot of people on probation in the city. I won't tell you what we're doing, but I will tell you that we are working with probation and looking at how we revoke their probation. The response to shots fired and shooting incidents. So I think it was on the news the other day, and it's very sad that we have a homicide, but the news wants to talk about some garbage that was left behind. You know, when we had a victim at midnight who was shot, and the story that's missing is that our officers are working tremendous amounts of hours to try and solve the case. We have to send officers back home if they get changed out of their uniforms because they're all bloody from somebody else's uniform. And then they're walking around like zombies the next day because they've been working 14, 15 hours trying to solve a crime. But the story is some plastic was left out, or there was some stains on the cement. That was clean and the proper I will say this, the protocol was followed, but what you see at midnight and at 2 a.m. versus what now appears in the morning is different. But how do we respond to the shots fired when we have them? What's our follow-up and what's our protocol? It's something that we've looked at, and there's, again, further communication internally. So the next day they'll go out. We have specifically assigned one officer to follow up on our ShotSpotter incidents, because I will say this, and people always ask, well, how does ShotSpotter work? Is it worth it? It's expensive. Is it worth it to us? And I always ask, what's one life worth to you? Because people in Peoria don't call in shots fired. People in Peoria don't say it happened over there and I'm a witness to it. And so most of the times we get a ShotSpotter alert, quite a bit of times, there's no victim, there's no witness, and we don't even find the evidence sometimes. But we have gone out on the ShotSpotter because people don't call, and we found somebody laying there dying. So what's it cost to save somebody's life is what I say. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's another tool in the toolbox. It's not the only thing that's going to help us. When we talk about the LPRs that we put up, the LPRs are by a company called FLAC. FLAC has a system within those LPRs called Raven, and Raven is a ShotSpotter system. So we are testing out Raven. So if Raven is just as good as what we have now, we will move away from ShotSpotter at some point and put more FLAC cameras out. I will tell you, Rockford has 50 some cameras, Springfield has 80, and we have 16. So we need more cameras. And so the goal is to get more cameras in our city. So yes, you can move on to the next thing. So what we have an officer that specifically is assigned to ShotSpotter. He works in our SID division, Special Investigative Division. And what he will do is he will go out the next day and he will knock on doors. If the ShotSpotter shows you where the shots came from, pretty much real exact. And we've already recovered 3 or 4 guns just by going out and knocking on somebody's door and saying, hey, there was some shooting. There was a shooting out here. We found some shell casings under your porch. Did you shoot a gun off? Yeah, I did last night. Okay, we need your gun. So we are working very hard at trying to do things a little bit differently. We have to think out of the box, and the typical way of doing stuff and leaving things that we have to really follow up more and just do things a little bit differently. You wouldn't think that somebody would open their door and say, yeah, I did do that last night, but They will. So we are following up our investigative operations, undercover, confidential sources, confidential informants. Yes, we do all of that. I won't give out our secrets, but it's no secret that we're working with other our federal and state partners. You've read it in the newspaper, state police, marshals, ATF, DEA, FBI. We're going to continue to do that, but we do our, there are operations, investigative operations that we are working on and that we'll continue to do. Very important, communication and coordination with our state's attorney's office. Have a phenomenal relationship with Jody. Constantly are on the phone, really making sure that we are, whether it's talking about curfew, whether it's talking about panhandlers, whether it's talking about gun violence, that we are having conversations and making sure that we're not missing something, or we're missing a new law that we could be using, or we shouldn't be out doing certain things. One, the panhandlers, for example. I don't like seeing them in the middle of the road. If they want to panhandle, that's fine, but it's very dangerous. We see them in the medians. Our hands are tied. We can't do anything about that right now. You know, it's unconstitutional for us to do anything. Although we all understand it's a safety issue for us. I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want my wife, for example, to be driving down the street and somebody steps out and now she ran them over, right? The trauma that somebody will have by running somebody over, and then we are also losing somebody, right? We don't need that. And so we're working through some things to have, you know, we're asking people nicely to move to the side of the road, because we don't want anybody to get injured. But when I talk about communication and specifically to our gun violence, it's really, you know, when we need to get warrants, we need to get search warrants or arrest warrants, and making sure that we have communication on a follow-up and once somebody is arrested. Our community messaging, and I think that's something that the community is seeing a lot more. When we do our details, that you get on social media, there's a press release that goes out directly from my office with my quotes on what I'm thinking at that moment and where we're at, and that's been very positive, and we'll continue to do that. You can next slide, please. So we're working on a gun buyback event. Sorry for the T's missing there. Buyback even. Okay. May 7th, Mother's Day weekend, that Saturday, we are in the works of doing a gun buyback where the theme is we're buying your guns to save your sons. And we have 4 locations that we are going to be purchasing guns from the community. I have a donor who has stepped up to donate quite a bit of money. So we'll have quite a bit of money to have some categories in what we will pay. We're not going to put that out yet because we got to be smart with what information we put out. But what I don't want to do is, hey, we're going to pay you this amount of money for this gun. And then all of a sudden we got a surge in people stealing guns, right? I don't want to do that. I want to buy the guns that are out there already. I don't want somebody else going out stealing guns right? So then we don't want to do that. So we got to be strategic in that. Outside community partner, outside agency partnerships, I touched on that briefly. You know, we're going to continue to work with them. We are establishing a task force, if you will, that will work out of the police department, and I'll just leave it as that. It's going to involve our federal partners. I'm not going to put too much info out because I'm being recorded, but pay it. You'll get the information here soon. Ordinances and legislation, you know, is really meeting with our attorneys and saying, okay, what can we do? Again, I gave the example of the panhandling. What is it that we can do? Should we put signs out on the intersections to say, no soliciting, panhandling, it is unsafe in this area, etc., and working with other community stakeholders to deal with that. But ordinances and legislations, what do we need to do? I think one of the things that we're missing is you can't walk into I haven't walked into one yet, but I will soon, a cannabis shop. I've not walked into one, but I know that they have more security in there than any other place. But you can walk into a gun shop and guns are just laid out, right? So is that something that needs to happen? We've had, before I arrived here, there's been over 300 guns stolen from gun shops in and around the Peoria area. So, you know, should there be a little bit more security in those areas? And what's that legislation look like, right? because I literally can't walk. There's security, there's cameras all over the cannabis shops, but not at a gun shop. And I'll say, even as a chief of police, guns are a little bit more dangerous than weed, right? All right. So, and then nuisance abatement, really looking at these properties that have become a problem and a constant problem, and essentially, how can we take those properties away from these areas? And we don't want to, and I'll say this, we don't want to just go and take somebody's property. That's not the point. We want to work with the landlords. If the landlord is working with us and the landlord is doing what he or she needs to do to abate the situation, then we're good. But we're going to have landlords in the city that don't want to work with us, don't want to do anything. They're just slumlords. And those are the ones that we need to deal with. So I ask you to go on to the next slide. So these are the things that we've done since I arrived. Especially, this is the new thing. This is what we're going to do. And we kicked it off January. This is the gun anti-initiative violence, right? Gun violence initiative, anti-violence initiative, whatever we want to call it. So if you will see, we're going to compare now, January last year to date. So we are down 14% in shot spotted alerts, and we are down 14% in rounds fired. Last year we had 1,500. We're at 1,300 now, year to date. Gunshot victims, we had 9 year to date last year. 30 year to date last year, and we're down to 14 year to date. 7 homicides last year, we're down to 6. 6 of them last year were from gunshots. This year is street. Now, I'm not happy with those numbers, right? That we still have people that are dying and we still have shootings, but we're trending in the right direction is what I'm saying. It's hard to control when somebody kills somebody in a domestic situation, and we've seen that this year. Right? We had the first one was a double homicide. 2 ladies were killed by a man. The little 2-year-old that was killed, the juvenile that was killed by their father, the juvenile that was stabbed, and then unfortunately we just had another. You'll get the news first. It is a homicide. The 8-year-old is a homicide, and that was the parents. Right? We can't control that, and what we're trying to control, obviously, we love to be able to control that and figure out what we need to have in place to control some of that stuff that's happening behind closed doors. But our shootings is what was our biggest number, and we're seeing that obviously those numbers are down. So we're not celebrating by no means. I will celebrate at the end of the year if our numbers are better. This tells us that we're in the right direction, and we're going to continue to work in the direction that we're going. We got more surprises for those that want to commit crimes. We got more surprises up our sleeves for them, and we're going to continue surprising them. I make no bones about it. You've heard me. If you want to commit crimes here, you got 3 options. You can move, you can not do it, or you can go to jail. There's no other options for me. There's no reason that Peoria has to feel like it's okay. And that's the feeling I got when I got here. It's like, well, this is just how Peoria is. Well, no, we don't have to accept that. We don't have to sit back and accept that that's the behavior we're going to accept, and that we're going to accept crime in our city. We don't have to do that. So we're going to continue to work hard. I'm very proud of the men and women at the Peoria Police Department. I will tell you, these officers know how to do police work. That they know how to do. And they work long, stressful hours. This weekend has been very, very stressful for our officers. There was not a dry eye in the room when this baby was being dealt with. This 8-year-old, it's probably one of the worst cases I've seen in my career, and one of the worst cases they've seen. And we've had some very horrific domestics. This weekend seems to be like the weekend of domestics that were very, very horrible domestics. So we have some officers who are stressed, and I've implemented a chaplain program in the police department. So we have 9 chaplains. We have a chaplain's office in the police department that never existed before. And so we have a place for officers to be able to, if you need to talk to somebody, talk to them, along with our EAP program, but the chaplains are there if they need to talk to them as well. So we're doing a lot of different things. Brand new gym in the police department, put a lot of brand new equipment in there since I got in here, because it's important for not just their mental health, but their physical health, to go take some time and do that. There's actually a room that we're putting in that we call it the nap room. And I'm okay with that. We have officers that are, like I said, are working long hours. So we're putting some recliners in a room for the TV, a nice chair, dim the lights, and a white noise machine. And if you need to go in there and get some shut eye, go in there and do that. Talk to your bosses and go and do that. But again, we're trending in the right direction. We appreciate the community support. I don't know what time it is. And I'm going to open up for questions now.
We've got one question that's come in online. Question is, are there stats on the reduction of violent crime with concealed carry permits? Your thoughts? Thanks for all you're doing.
I don't know, we're not, I'll be honest with you, we're not concerned with the concealed carry. We don't have problems with that. I don't have the stats, right, to say, but that's not really the concern in Peoria. The concern is these 300 guns that were stolen and 100 and some guns that we still haven't been able to recover that were stolen in and around Peoria. The problems that we have are not with people that have legal guns. It's the illegal guns and these what they call ghost guns that we have a problem with. And not just in Peoria, it's all around the state. You go to Springfield and you talk to Rockford, and I know the chiefs there, and we chat and we have intel meetings, and they see the same issues we have. And some of it interchanges. We see some of our people committing crimes over there and it ends up here, and vice versa. So I don't know if we have those stats. That would be something I'd have to look into. But really, our concealed carry is not the problem. Most people who are carrying concealed carry are law-abiding citizens. So,
Chief, thank you for coming to Peoria and what you're doing in our community. Really appreciate that. Last year, there was a new criminal justice reform bill that was put through, and I know there's going to be a change with the cash bail. Could you talk about that a little bit? And when you arrest somebody, are they going to be right on the street again, or what the policy is?
you know what? That is so fluid. That is still so fluid that we're not even too concerned where that's going right now. As a chief, I'm not. I tell my staff, don't worry, it changes day by day. And I tell you that I've been in conversation with the legislators, and they know. What I always tell people is, I'm going to use this mallet, is the pendulum can't be over here and it can't be over here. We have to continue to have a balance. I can't have my officers just go out and make arrest. We have to have a balance of community engagement, right? Our youth advisory committee, our Explore program, visiting schools, our neighborhood walk and talks that we're doing. But we also need, and if we're only doing that, we have a problem, right? Because then the criminals think they can get away with whatever they want. It's a balance. And I think the legislators, in my conversations with them, know that it became unbalanced based on decisions they made without having the appropriate knowledge. So the legislators call me now and say, hey, we're talking about this. What is your thoughts on it? So now there's more communication between us. I don't know where that's going to go, but I'll tell you this, when legislators are getting carjacked in Chicago, they change their minds quickly. I'll leave it at that.
Chief, thank you for all that you have done and continue to do here in the community to abate the problems that we have, problems you inherited. I would like to ask you how many officers you need to become full strength.
I have to check. I'm at 200, but I had a couple. It fluctuates week by week. So I need 22 to be technically at full strength, but I'd love to be back at 255 where Peoria once was. And so I have right now, we have 10 at the academy. That puts us at 200, right? So now technically that's 190. We have probably, you could count probably another 10 officers that are out, injury, whatever, injury, sick, military. So it reduces our staff. I'm not going to see these officers probably till these 10 that are in, I probably won't see them on the street till the beginning of, maybe closer to the end of the year, maybe beginning of next year, based on training that they need to have internally on their own. So I have 10 that were that in the academy. We're trying to get 15 in this next academy. So I begged for 5 more spots at a different academy and they gave it to me. The problem is that I don't have, we're in backgrounds right now. We dropped from like 25 down to 20. And I am hoping and crossing my fingers that out of this 20, we have 15 that we can send to the academy. And then I want to hire, if I can, another 10 in September, which I have academy slots for. But the problem is what I was stuck. Yes, we have these vibes. We're going to get these, but I'm not going to see them until 2023, summer of 2023, before that even helps my numbers out, if you will. And how many are going to retire between now and then? How many may I need to fire? I hope none. How many may, be forced to retire? I don't know. But that happens in this line of work where there's a discussion is this situation happened. I'm going to be talking to you next week. You have a decision to make. You can retire, or I may be forced to have to fire somebody. Those are discussions that chiefs have with staff. And I'm hoping none of that occurs, but I got to take all of that into consideration, right? So 222 is the number I should be at, but Peoria's was once at 255. Love to get to that at some point.
Chief, you mentioned briefly traffic, and my store and offices are directly across from Walmart on University Street. The average speed there is probably 45 plus.
Yeah.
We've asked for increased enforcement. We don't see it. I know your officer count is down in the traffic division. So tell me how, and 45 is the average.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about 55, 60 miles an hour through there, and it's lawlessness. So how do we fix that?
Yeah, and again, that's one of those where I want to build up our traffic unit and have officers out there. And the problem is, it's not just in that area, right? So we had a very horrible accident. I believe it was on University. Yep, last night, and it's not looking good, right? So we have these issues all over the city, and so the goal is to get officers in, bump up our numbers in our traffic division, and have these officers just be enforcing traffic. I've already made directives in the police department where our traffic unit is not to go out and take minor accidents, that the patrol officers can do that. So we made those changes internally where they were doing that before. But it really boils down to the numbers. I need to have more officers to get them out there. The patrol officers know to deal with traffic, but the calls for service that we have, we run from call to call to call to call, leaves no time for proactive work. And that's really the truth. One of the things that we've talked about is, 12-hour shifts. And again, that it goes back to union and contracts. 12-hour shifts would provide a different mechanism, 2-man units, cars that are free to do stuff. But yes, we do look at that, and we know it's a problem. We know it's a problem, and any complaints that come through to our traffic division, they try to hit those areas, but then guess what? This other area is now neglected, and they're calling, and it's just, we're jumping from area to area to area. I hear your complaint. I hear your concerns. Keep calling it in. Yep.
I have more of a comment than a question. I'm 5 months into working in a zip code where there are a lot of shots fired. And I just want to say that I really appreciate the presence of your department, seeing them out canvassing the neighborhood, the detectives coming by, looking for footage. I think that really makes a statement for the people in the 61605. So thank you.
No problem. And, starting in April, the first Thursday of April, and every Thursday thereafter for 9 Thursdays in a row, I believe it's April 7th, we are going to be doing our walk and talks that we did last year. The community loved it. People are asking for it. I think our officers thought, Chief, what is this crazy stuff you're asking us to go knock on people's door and say hi? Yes, go say hi, give them some resources, see what the problems are in that neighborhood. So we picked 9 new areas of the city. We were gonna put that out yesterday, but it seemed kind of inappropriate to put that information out when we just had an 8-year-old that was killed. I'm sorry. It might have seemed a little insensitive that we're putting out information about doing walk and talk. So it may go out today, probably go out tomorrow, but we'll be out in different neighborhoods. And so knocking on doors and bring out resource information. And there'll be some other groups walking with us as well.
Legislature either is considering or has changed the law on civil immunity.
Qualified immunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that affect your recruiting ability?
Well, that affects, right? If officers believe they're not going to be protected, that affects who wants to do this job. I will tell you, like I spoke earlier, I've asked that question directly to the legislators, and I don't think that doesn't seem like it's going to go anywhere. Again, when our legislators are being affected by the crime based on decisions they made, they have to rethink of their decisions. And they are. I've spoken to several of them, and they've admitted we have to pivot and we have to go in a new direction. I will tell you, things that there's more money now that's coming into grants than we've ever seen for crime reduction. The legislators are talking about grants for daycare for officers, college reimbursement, things we've never heard of, because they know what happened and what they decided to do. We're seeing the ramifications of some of that, right? When the criminal element believes that they can get away with whatever, and don't get me wrong, we need to have restorative measures in place. We need to have all those things. Everybody doesn't have the luxury that we probably all have, and find themselves in some circumstances that lead them down a certain path in their life. And some people can be, I think there's a lot of people that can be saved. There are people who make a mistake, and if we can get them in the right direction, they'll never make the mistakes again. But then we have some, and a lot of them, what we're seeing now is these juveniles. The last car pursuit we had was a stolen vehicle. This vehicle was involved in one shooting the day before, 2 shootings the next day of 10 rounds each. And when we went to stop the car, it took off. It was a 15-year-old kid driving this car, a stolen vehicle, just driving around shooting a gun. It wasn't the first time, it wasn't the first, second, or third time we dealt with this kid. So at some point, the legislation needs to change where we can start charging some of these juveniles as adults, because it's not helping, they're not changing. I know, but again, there's some other programs that there are when you get a first-time offender, maybe a second or third-time offender, where we can get them in the situation, get them some help and get the family the help that they need, and we should hopefully not see those problems. So again, it's a balance of everything. I think everything has to be balanced. When it becomes unbalanced, we start to see the issues that we see.